Downstairs, there were signs of what they believed to be a staged burglary. The back door had a single broken window pane, and there was a maul, a type of heavy axe, leaning against the wall. Cathy's purse and its contents were strewn across the dining room floor in a way that to authorities seemed almost deliberate. And there was a sterling silver tea set carefully arrayed on the floor nearby. Next to the tea set, investigators found a garbage bag with a faint shoe print inside, as if someone had stood in it to hold it open. Detectives now believe it was an important clue to solving the case. At first glance, it looked like someone had pushed the pause button on the burglary, but the scene lacked one of the most important hallmarks of a burglary. Retired Brighton Police Detective Mark Liberator and Detective Steve Hunt told 48 Hours correspondent Aaron Moriarty. That's because they say nothing was taken. There's an officer involved in the case from the 1980s who hits the nail on the head, says Liberator. We in Brighton do not handle a lot of homicides. We do handle a lot of burglaries, and this was not a burglary. Back then, investigators suspected the scene was staged by Cathy's husband, Jim, to conceal his real intention, killing her. Crime scene photos show a pair of boat shoes like he was known to wear by her bed. 40 years later, detectives believe the faint shoe print in that garbage bag was made by those boat shoes. He's a boat shoe wearing guy, says Hunt, and we don't have murderers running around in February in the wintertime wearing boat shoes and killing people. But the boat shoes next to Cathy's bed were never tested to see if they matched the print, and the original investigators hadn't kept the shoes. Jim Kraussneck's lawyer says his client didn't kill Cathy. He loved her. Sure he did. Cathy and Jim Kraussneck and their 3.5-year-old daughter Sarah had moved to Brighton in 1981, just 6 months before the murder, so he could start work as an economist at Kodak. The day Cathy died, he had told police he'd left for the office as usual at about 6:30 a.m. and found her body when he returned just before 5 p.m. To first responders like Bill Flood, it had seemed clear that Sarah had been in the house alone, possibly for hours, with her mother's body. She had several sweaters on. They were misaligned with the buttons, says Flood, who spent 38 years with the Brighton Police before retiring in 2011. She had several pairs of socks on. It was obvious to us that she had dressed herself. Sarah would tell investigators that she had seen a bad man with long blonde hair sleeping in Mommy and Daddy's bed with an axe in his head. Asked if the man was black or white, she said he was many colors. Flood thinks Sarah hadn't seen a man at all. It was her blonde mother in bed, covered in blood. What does a 3.5-year-old do? Wonders Gary Craig, a reporter for the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, who covered the case. It's inconceivable enough that somebody could take an axe to their wife's head. You know, if Jim Kraussneck did, was their prime suspect. They paid him a visit in April of 2016. They flew to the Seattle area, where he was by then living after having remarried. They showed up unannounced, hoping to get a confession, but they left without one. Lacking a breakthrough, Kraussneck himself, authorities 2 months later sent crime evidence to an FBI lab, hoping new technology might yield new clues. The FBI was able to test a host of items for the presence of DNA, and when the results came back, they showed nothing to suggest anyone besides the Kraussnecks had been in the house the night Cathy died. To investigators, this amounted to some of the strongest evidence yet against Jim Kraussneck. It sort of became, who else could it be, says reporter Gary Craig. Still, to prove Kraussneck had killed Cathy, District Attorney Sandra Dorley wanted to ascertain as closely as possible what time she had actually died. We needed a definitive time of death, says Liberator. That piece of information had always been missing from the Kraussneck investigation. Time of death is notoriously difficult to measure scientifically. The most the 1982 medical examiner had reported been able to do was narrow it down to between 4:30 a.m. and 7:30 a.m. Since then, other experts agreed it was impossible to say if Cathy died before or after 6:30 a.m., the time her husband said he left for work. But in 2018, prosecutors and police sought yet another opinion, this one from Dr. Michael Baden. I don't know if any of you ever watched Autopsy on HBO. Michael Baden was the medical examiner that went over some of the cases in that show. So good. I think they came out in the 90s maybe. But if you have HBO or Max or whatever the hell it's called now, definitely look up Autopsy. He's fantastic. Okay. Over the course of a 50-year career, Baden had been consulted in the who's who of whodunit cases, from the assassination of JFK to the reported suicide of disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein, often raising eyebrows and generating controversy. In this case, using the same file from 1982, Baden said it appeared Cathy Kraussneck died around 3:30 a.m. and said in his report, to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, that Mrs. Kraussneck died hours before 6:30 a.m. on February 19th, 1982. If true, that put the murder hours before Jim said he'd left for the office. Some people may say that we were looking for an opinion, says D.A. Dorley. That's what the defense says, Moriarty replies. Absolutely, says Dorley. In fact, Dr. Michael Baden had agreed with the other medical examiners that you can't precisely pick time of death. Would you have hired him? Moriarty continues. Absolutely not, Dorley replies. Armed with Baden's opinion and the DNA test results showing no proof anyone else had been in the Kraussneck house that night, prosecutors put the case to a grand jury, which in November of 2019 charged Jim Kraussneck with murder. But Kraussneck's defense team Kraussneck's trial in 2022, they called medical examiner Barbara Maloney to the stand. Maloney says the original medical examiner was correct, that the time of death couldn't be narrowed down the way Bodden had. "So you're saying Dr. Bodden is wrong?" asked Moriarty. "I'm saying I disagree with him. I think he is wrong," Maloney replies, saying that in her opinion, Cathy could have been killed as late as 1:30 p.m. What's more, Jim Kraussneck's attorney, Bill Easton, argues Cathy's killer is someone else the police were familiar with. "If Jim Kraussneck didn't kill his wife, who did?" asks Moriarty. "Larrabee," says Easton. He says police received an anonymous tip soon after the murder about a serial predator named Edward Larrabee, who was living only a half a mile from the Kraussnecks at the time. Larrabee had a long record of attacks against women, and when police approached him, he angrily dismissed them, telling them to call his lawyer. Investigators placed the call, but apparently did not follow up. In 2018, soon before dying in prison on other charges, Larrabee confessed to killing Cathy Kraussneck, but Dorley believes he knew he was on borrowed time and simply wanted to negotiate for more privileges in his final days. His confession didn't match up to the facts, she says. Dorley says Larrabee had described Cathy as having dark hair. She was blonde, and also confessed he had sexually assaulted her, but there was no evidence of that. Dorley insists she had absolutely no doubt that Jim Kraussneck killed Cathy Kraussneck that day, and the jury agreed. On September 26th of 2022, Jim Kraussneck was convicted of the second-degree murder of Cathy Kraussneck. The 71-year-old was later sentenced to 25 years to life. Looking on in dismay was Kraussneck's now adult daughter Sarah, who told the court, "My mother's killer got away with murder, and my father's life has been taken by a failed justice system that convicted him of a crime he did not commit." Also attending the trial was Jim Kraussneck's current wife, Sharon, who insists he has been a gentle, loving partner since they married 23 years ago. "I know he did not murder his wife," she says. "When you're married to a man, you know his heart and you know his soul." I don't know, guys, what do you think? Think we all know our spouses that well? Maybe, maybe not. Our second case is that of Melanie Lynn McGuire, who killed her husband. Melanie Lynn McGuire is an American former nurse who was convicted of murdering her husband on April 28th of 2004 in what media dubbed the suitcase murder. She was sentenced to life in prison on July 19th of 2007 and is serving her sentence at the Edna Mahan Correctional Facility for women in Clinton, New Jersey. She will not be eligible for parole until she is 101 years old. Melanie Lynn Slate, her maiden name, grew up in Ridgewood and Middletown Township, New Jersey, attending Middletown High School South. She enrolled at Rutgers University with a double major in math and psychology and graduated in 1994. She graduated second in her class from the Charles E. Gregory School of Nursing in 1997 with a nursing diploma. She married United States Navy Bill's second artificial island on May 16th. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble reading tonight, y'all. Please pardon me. Police released a facial reconstruction sketch of the victim, which an acquaintance of Bill McGuire's recognized. Melanie then became the prime suspect, and authorities turned the investigation over to the New Jersey State Police. During the investigation, incriminating evidence against Melanie was uncovered. On April 26th of 2004, Melanie had purchased a .38 caliber handgun from a store in Easton, Pennsylvania. Bill had been killed with a .38 caliber handgun with wad cutter bullets. Melanie's receipt for the gun also listed an unspecified purchase of $9.95. There were only 2 items in the store for that amount, and one of them, what do you guess, was a box of wad cutter bullets. Police received a tip from the private towing company employee who said he towed a 2002 Nissan Maxima, Bill McGuire's car, from the Flamingo Motel in Atlantic City on May 8th of 2004. Upon further investigation, police discovered a security video of the car being moved in the early morning hours of April 30th, 2004. The footage was blurry, and the police weren't able to identify the person in the video. Melanie later claimed she had moved the car as a prank, even though she had applied for a protection from abuse order days earlier after allegedly being slapped by her husband. Police also learned that Melanie had been having a long-term affair with a co-worker named Bradley Miller. Her Easy Pass tag was recorded at a toll booth in Delaware 2 days after the murder. She claimed that this was the result of her going furniture shopping in Delaware, since it has no sales tax. Before she was charged with murder, Melanie contacted Easy Pass and attempted to have the 90-cent charge removed from her account history. Days later, an unidentified man, believed by many to be her stepfather, also contacted Easy Pass and attempted to have the charge removed. The plastic bags that contained Bill's body parts and the bags that contained Bill's clothes, which, please pardon my cat jumping all over the place like a little monkey. Where were we? The plastic bags that contained Bill's body parts and the bags that contained Bill's clothes, which Melanie had given away to a friend, were demonstrated by forensics to have been manufactured on the same assembly line within hours of one another. Melanie admitted that the couple owned the same set of luggage that the body was found in, a matching 3-piece set of Kenneth Cole suitcases. Green fibers had been found on one of the bullets lodged in Bill's chest. The fibers were identified as polyester fill, a common material found in household furniture. Bill and Melanie owned a green couch, and investigators theorized that the murderer used a pillow or couch cushion as a makeshift silencer when Bill was shot. Similarly, a medical-grade towel found with Bill's body matched those stocked at the clinic where Melanie worked. A witness testified that Melanie used the same towels to protect furniture when she moved house. On June 2nd of 2005, more than a year after the murder, Melanie dropped her children off at a child care and preschool. After exiting the older child's Middlesex County Adult Correctional Center on first-degree murder charges, but made her $750,000 bail, which would be about $1.17 million today. Through her attorneys, Joe Tacopina, probably fucked that up, but Steve Toronto and Mark Ward, she pleaded not guilty to the charges. After being released on bail, Melanie faced additional charges on October 11th, 2005. A 4-count indictment came down from the state grand jury. Her bail was raised to $2.1 million, $3.3 million today. Boy, let me tell you what about inflation. But she was again released. More than a year later, on October 26th, 2006, McGuire was charged with 2 counts of hindering apprehension for allegedly writing letters to police aimed at getting them off her trail. She again pleaded not guilty and was released after posting a $10,000 bail. Almost 3 years after the crime, McGuire's murder trial commenced at the Middlesex County Courthouse in New Brunswick, New Jersey, on March 5th, 2007. Prosecutors contended her motive for murder was to take up a new life with her lover. McGuire persisted in claiming she was innocent and claimed her husband had become increasingly moody and unpredictable and was a compulsive gambler. On April 23rd of 2007, McGuire's murder trial found her guilty of first-degree murder, finding that the evidence established her culpability for the murder beyond a reasonable doubt. She was also convicted of the lesser charges of perjury, desecration of human remains, and possession of a weapon for an unlawful purpose. However, McGuire was acquitted of the 2 counts of hindering apprehension, as well as tampering with evidence and possession of Xanax without a prescription. Shortly after her conviction, but before sentencing, McGuire appealed for a new trial on the basis of the story of jailhouse informant Christopher Thiem that her husband was deeply in debt and may have been killed by Atlantic City mobsters. However, prosecutors established that the informant was entirely incredible and routinely and habitually fabricates stories, according to a New Jersey State Police investigation, before the informant recanted and accused McGuire's attorney of perjury. Sorry, guys. With the story debunked, the request for a new trial was withdrawn. On July 19th, 2007, at the age of 34, McGuire was sentenced to life in prison. During her arraignment on murder charges, McGuire's case was dubbed the suitcase murder by various media outlets. Author John Glatt wrote a book about the case entitled To Have and to Kill. The case has been profiled on television outlets Snapped, Dateline NBC, 48 Hours Mystery, and The Investigator's True TV Deadly Affairs. I don't know. She had a boyfriend. I think that's probably about the extent of it. But you gotta be really, really fucked up to kill anybody but to dismember somebody and pack them up in your suitcase and toss their ass in the Chesapeake Bay. That's a big job for somebody to do. But I guess, there's a will, there's a way. She was motivated. Anyway, I'm so sorry it's been so long since I posted. I'm really trying to get this shit together here. And hopefully the audio in this video is not complete next time. Anyway, highest compliment you can pay to the channel. Thumbs up, subscribe, comment, and I will see all of you on the next one. Sweet dreams, everyone.